Hey, welcome back to my channel. They call me Charisma. And before I get started, I want to again give my condolences and my heartfelt wishes of support to everyone in California and to anyone who has a loved one or a person that they care about in the state of California. And I want to remind people to keep their thoughts and prayers with those in California. Ashe. Um, I was on YouTube watching one of my favorite YouTubers, and the channel is called No Way Sis. And before I go into that, if you hear any noises, I'm washing clothes, so you might hear my dryer. So the YouTuber that I was watching, her channel is called No Way Sis, and she's from Africa. And she had some women on who were discussing some things that have happened to them in their relationships with men. And the topic was, what is the most horrible thing a man has called you or said to you in the course of the relationship? And I was really surprised at some of the responses. And these women were all ages, all races. And one of the things that stood out for me was a lady who was married. She had just had a baby, and her husband started telling her how fat she was, how unattractive she was right away. Just had a baby. Very surprised by that. And this woman was in tears telling this story. And she didn't say if she had stayed with her husband or not, but she was very emotional. And this was not right after she had had this child. So this was some time after, and she was still very emotional telling this story. Another lady was divorced from her husband, and she talked about how during the course of the divorce, he would send messages to her telling her how much he hated her, how much she had ruined his life, and how he hoped that she was unhappy, that she never met anybody else, and how she was the worst thing that had ever happened to him. And she talked about how she was glad that she was able to cry after this experience because she had just become a numb person. She didn't have any feelings anymore. And she just kind of was glad that she could be a whole human being again. Because during the course of their relationship, she was just a robot. You know, she didn't have any emotions, and she was glad to be able to come back to herself because she didn't recognize herself anymore. So as I'm watching this, I'm thinking to myself, you know, have I had a relationship where somebody was like this with me, cruel like this? Because this is cruel to me. So as I'm watching this and thinking about it, I'm like, no, I never had anybody talk to me like this. I've never, because, you know, I haven't had any issues with the law. I haven't been to jail because all I can think about is if this happened to me, I'm gonna be orange is the new black in it, you know. So I'm thinking, I'm watching, and I'm feeling bad for these ladies because again, this is all ages, this is all races, this is happening to a lot of people. And then I think back to a relationship that I was in, and I'm like, yep, something like that happened to me. and this was 20 years ago. I was in my 30s, and I was dating this guy named Andre. I will say his name. And I had met him when I was in college. And I remember I told you, or maybe I didn't say, but I went to college straight out of high school at 17. and I didn't like it. It was like the 13th grade to me. And I went to college for business management, business administration. I didn't like it because I wanted to do fashion. That was my thing. And my parents didn't want me to do that. So I had a scholarship, and after that first year, I was like, I'm not doing this. And I turned 18, and I moved out of my parents' house, worked, lived on my own. When I turned, when I got back in my, when I got into my 20s, I went back to college and got into a fashion program and got into fashion that way. So during that first year of college as a 17-year-old, this is when I met Andre. And we never dated in college in a formal way, but we hung out. I liked him, he liked me. He was a cool guy, and I liked him. And we got along fine, right? So, of course, during the course of growing up and becoming a grown up, I lost contact with him. But when Facebook came out, I didn't initially jump on Facebook like everybody else. I was working, I had traveled a little bit, and so when I got on Facebook, of course, you get those friend requests. And you get requests from people who they not really your friends. They weren't your friends, but you just say, okay, whatever. And so through that interaction, that's how he got in touch with me. So he got in touch with me. We started communicating through Facebook, and then eventually we met up in person. And we started dating. And this wasn't like a are you my boyfriend, am I your girlfriend type thing. It just clicked. It just happened. Because for me, I felt like I knew him, even though I really didn't know him. Because again, now we're full grown adults. We're not 17, 18-year-old college kids, right? And we're dating, but I'm seeing things that are not what I thought I would see. This person is argumentative for no reason at all, and we don't live in the same state. So I'm not a person that checks phones. I'm not a person that checks your story or checks up on you, because I, at this point, am working and I'm in grad school. And I don't need you around me 24 hours a day because I don't need a minder. And I also, again, I'm not checking your story because if you said that's what it is, that's what it is, because that's the way I operate. I'm not lying to you. I don't expect you to lie to me. So on this one occasion, I have graduated from grad school, and he's taking me out to dinner. We go out, and then he takes me to Macy's and buys me some trinket. Go to Bath and Body Works, buys me some stuff at Bath and Body Works. And again, these are not high-end places, so I'm not saying he took me to Tiffany's. And it doesn't matter. He brought me these things. It was nice to do, right? So we get back to my house, and he starts some argument that I believe was a part two to something that he started with me before on an occasion when he was at my house and I was checking my emails and he was looking over my shoulder and I closed out my emails. Because what he used to do was not accuse me, but try to insinuate. And when people do that, it's really because they're doing something and they need to accuse somebody else. It's projecting. So he couldn't really accuse me of anything on that day. So now we're starting a part two on this day. And so I was tired of this and I kind of knew what this was. So I said, leave, get out of my house. And I said it like that. And so he says, I'm not going to leave until you give me my stuff. And so I march upstairs like Flojo so fast, my little short legs. And I go and get his things. And I throw them. I don't, because I'm not nice. I throw them. And he throws his stuff in the bag and proceeds to tell me that he's going to take them to his other girl. And I laugh because this is how somebody would try to get you to engage in a secondary argument because they don't want to leave. I don't engage in that secondary argument because you're gonna leave. So he's standing there saying words that I don't even recall, and I go and pick up the phone to call the police because you're gonna leave. So I call the police, let them know I have a person in my home that refuses to leave. And so now he can find the door. Now he can leave because I've called the police. And you don't want the police to come. And so he gets outside of my door in my quiet neighborhood. I live in a neighborhood with mostly retired older people who, I promise you, by 7:30, you can hear a pin drop in my neighborhood. There are no dogs barking. There are no cars passing by playing loud music. Peaceful, quiet, lovely neighborhood. He gets outside of my door, and what does he do? He calls me a crazy bitch. Repeatedly. A crazy bitch, a crazy bitch. Repeatedly. And I do the petty boots thing. I say, yo mama. And I close the door, lock it, and, I go upstairs, take my shower, and I go to bed. So, and of course, that's not the end of the story. And maybe, if you want, we'll talk about this some more. But I don't want to make this a long video either. I do want to know from you, because, I always want to know something from you. What has someone called you? And how did you respond? What has someone called you in your relationship? And how did you respond? Now, this is the other thing. I know that for me, this was a long time ago. And this is my only experience with this. And for some of you, this may not be a long time ago. And I'm not trying to bring up anything that is harmful, hurtful, traumatic. But I am trying to get you to look at this in a different way. Because for me, this was one of those opportunities for me to change. Because I had been engaging back and forth with this fool with arguing, which is not what I do. I don't argue. But I have been doing that with him. He would say something and I pop off and go back and forth. And this person liked the argument. It gave him control and power to get me upset or frustrated. Because then he could just kind of sit back and, yeah, I got another one today. But once I wasn't doing that, he didn't know what to do. So if this is something that is not going to release for you, help you come back into your power, then please don't answer the question. Just put a laughing emoji or some other emoji that does not make you feel away. But if you feel good about this, if you feel okay to answer, please answer the question. What has someone said to you in a relationship? And how did you respond? Please like the video. Please share the video. And please subscribe. And thank you for coming back to my channel. They call me Charisma.